All right. So I know in my last stream, I was hoping to be done with OpenCV by the end of last week. That didn't happen, but I do think I am incredibly close. Like if we just look at the score tally right now, so I improved the test harness to the point now where I actually have this run script where I can pass a -s flag, which basically just means whether or not we will build the C++ libraries before running the test suite. But if I just run it as is, it would like build the C++ libraries, run through all the tests, which I have 4 of them now. It'll skip writing files to the file system, so I don't have to go delete images or anything. And then I don't quite have it, like it's supposed to also skip logs. I don't quite have that working, but I'm not really worried about that. I'll get that fixed. But then I can also do things like pass a -k flag, which would do a filter. So I could do something like align, -k align, and it would only run these 2 tests. Or if I don't pass the -k flag and I just write good, it'll write that exact test. It'll run that exact test with that exact name. And in those 2 scenarios, it'll actually write files out. So now this means I can bounce very quickly between running the whole test suite to see how the scores are doing, and then running an individual test or a group of tests to see how a certain code change affects things. But where's the score? Where are we at? So I made some tweaks over the weekend, and now we're at, you can see these 3 tests here. So the align frames test is scoring a 72. Align frames crop with the cropping issues. This one's like the terrible test. This test it's going to be a struggle to get the score up on this one. I think there is a chance that it could be recovered. Right now the issue is it's got 5 images, but those images are so different from each other that all 4 of them get thrown out. So we end up trying to OCR 1 frame, and that's just not enough. And so the OCR quality is very low. So this one's scoring a 33 though. Like even then, it's scoring a 33. So there is a chance I might be able to improve this one enough to get like a 2nd frame to be aligned properly. I'm not going to worry about that right now. This is not something I'm going to fix anytime soon. But theoretically, this is one of those tests where maybe one day I'll get this score up. This is a good one. This is one where I just sat down and I took a good proper like take of a book that's held very steady in my hands. And that one's scoring 69. And then shaky leg, where I was like kind of like doing a little vibration and like shaking as if to simulate if somebody's, reading the book and they're a little nervous or they're doing a little shaky leg or their head's moving a little bit. And somehow that one's scoring the best at 80. I don't know how that's happening. But the point is, we're up to like 80. So we're scoring 80. My goal was to get to 90. Now, even at 80, is this the shaky leg one? Yeah, running test shaky leg. Even at 80, this isn't very readable. I'm sure individual words or phrases are correct, but I see enough issues in this. Like, I don't know what word that is, but it's not close enough. Hopefully, once we get to 90, once we get this one up to 90, it starts becoming pretty readable. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try... there's a couple of very small things I think that can be done that might boost the score. In fact, that's how I got the scores up to this high, is I started making small tweaks. I just made like a settings change to Tesseract, and all of a sudden, the scores were a lot higher. So here's what we're going to do. So, okay, merge multiple frames. This is done. Replay errors in the test harness. I'm not going to do CI/CD yet for this, but it's already set up for it. Especially with the shell script, I could totally run headless Godot in like a GitHub action, and every time I push code, run the whole test suite. I'm not going to do that right now, but we'll get there. That's done. Dewarp, deskew, that may or may not do that today. At least we'll probably do one of these. I don't know about dewarp, but I get the feeling deskew is going to do a huge amount of benefit. Because of the way the book is being held when I've been taking these test images. Hold on, let me see something. Yeah, so just by the way I'm holding the book, there is a bit of skew to it. and I think it's too much for Tesseract to handle. So just by doing very simple basic skew fixing, I think it's gonna really boost the accuracy. In which case, we're working on this today as well. Sequential frames not consistent. Right. This is done. This is that bug was the. I think I resolved that. Denoise, de-sharpen, unsharpen. I may or not experiment with that. I think what's really also going to move the needle is let's. Excuse me. Sorry about that. This also should be pretty easy. I already have the bounding box info for all of the chunks of text in the image. So I should be able to measure the height of those boxes. And then based on that, if we throw out the outliers and then go with the largest of the main group, we should be able to then rescale the image to be 30 pixels high per letter and then fix the DPI as well. And that also apparently is supposed to really reduce the error rate within Tesseract. So I think if we do, I'm going to start with just deskew. All right, so yeah, well, actually, let's get this in. Yeah, same goal. Error on bad OCR quality, we're already doing that. Error on slow performance, doing that. Although right now I'm just kind of sandbagging it because I don't care about performance. Fix alignment regression, yep. Let's do this one. Let's do deskew. I'll add dewarp it down here with a question mark. And then test rearranging step order, sure, maybe. We're gonna do implement dewarp. Fix image for and DPI, so we'll do that. Yeah, so deskew. And then we will take a stab at quick run at performance. Because I think performance is pretty bad right now. And what I'm kind of expecting is going to happen is I'll probably do these two tasks. That'll probably boost us up pretty high, I'm guessing. That's my prediction. Might even boost us up like really high. And then I'm going to go back and fix some do some performance enhancements, which may drop our quality scores down a bit. And then we maybe experiment with one of these two things, or both, or some other tweaks, which would improve quality while still keeping performance fast. And then at that point, I might just call it. As long as we're within reason. Again, I want to move on from C++. Hopefully today. Really would very much be happy to move on today, but we shall see. I would very much like to spend the rest of this week focused on just improving the scene and getting deep into Godot. All right. So this is all going to start with this PR, which I did, just kind of documenting what I just said. I'm also throwing in my test results here for myself so that future self comes back to this pull request. We'll see where we were scoring at and how the quality was. Okay, that's done. And then over here, let's do, well, let me kill Godot. Godot doesn't seem to be happy when I switch branches sometimes. I think it gets confused and things get messed up. Because like files disappear and then they pop back in, so it's trying to like re-import them. Not the best. All right. delete that branch, and then cool. Blank slate, ready to go. So the other day I was wondering, I thought I could have sworn I'd already implemented dewarping, and I couldn't remember where I'd done it. I couldn't find it in any of my code. And I think what I finally realized was, yeah, I had done it on my experimental prototyping Python version of OpenCV. So if we go look here, actually, oh, right. It's in here. Do I have that here? As a project? I do. Yeah, better book detection. Git origin. Let's make sure we got the latest. Which I didn't have the latest. Grep minus RLS. And we'll look for the word skew. Smart OCR had it. Detect and correct text skew using hue line transform. Okay, so we convert to grayscale if needed, which I should already have grayscale images. Edge detection. Detect lines. Only correct if... Okay, so then we're... Use the first 10 lines. Do an angle math on the line, convert to a skew angle, and then if we have their angles, get the average of those. Only correct if skew is significant. Why only do it if it's significant? Okay, fine. I can see that as like an optimization, but isn't it always... There's always going to be some skew. But that's fine. And then rotate the image. Okay. Hold on a second. Let me pop up this stream manager. All right, just double checking, making sure I'm actually streaming and everything. Okay. All right, so that's the one version here of skew. Pre-process books. Step 1, detect and correct overall skew. Okay, that's where all these skew words came from. Detect and correct skew. Okay, that got moved then. I don't remember my notes here. I have a brew install Tesseract and some references. And when I did that search, it was only in Smart OCR. which I had thrown away because that code wasn't working. And so I started a new one. I mean, I could go look at the history. But I started a new one, which I think was Slow Smart OCR, which then became CPP Prep after I broke it down. Okay. Well, in any case, this is the only file that has skew in it. So let's take a look. Okay, so detecting correct skew was the function. And that's it. Those are all the... So this is the method. And then let's go use our friendly neighborhood AI. Do I care about this? I have... Oh yeah, this is a simple question. All right, new chat. I have a GD extension for Godot 4.5. It calls OpenCV to improve images before passing them to Tesseract for OCR. I would like to add a deskew function to the class called whatever. Can you convert this prototype code from Python to C++ for me? If it's not too much trouble, if you're not busy. All right, let's go back to reading room and we'll work code here. Yeah, this part of the test suite now is I have all this to keep track of this, what the scores should be, and then have the test suite yell an error if scores drop too low. Yeah, this is going to be the camera enhancer class, right? All right, let's see what it says. I'll convert this Python OpenCV deskew function to C++ for your... Here's the C++ implementation. Key differences. Memory management using CVMat, yep. And copy using vector 2f for lines, for angles. All right, I'm gonna go with this for the moment. The thing is, I already have a bunch of bounding boxes, which might save on this, but at the same time, if the speed on this is not bad, maybe I don't care. Here, I'm gonna plop this down here. Also as a reminder to like clean up a bunch of these commented out code that I may or may not need. All right, and then in our header, I'm going to make this private because it should just need to be called from local. Apply, calculate frame similarity. So debug logs and images, utility functions. cluster. Okay, I'm gonna put it in here. And I'm just gonna call it correct skew. Is that true? These are debug writing. But see, this is just like sitting up here by itself. Frame buffer and temporal processing. Config params, state. Internal methods. Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not going to refactor this right now. But I do not like the organization of this. All right, I am not going to correct for black and white because I already know it's going to be black and white. Okay. Ensure debug folder exists. All right, where's our main processing method? These are all utilities. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's where we do our main method. Right, we called down into... Okay, so then actually I want to move this into public. I guess that makes sense. Core processing functions. Work with CVMAT. Yep. Okay. And then... Right. I mean, I guess technically... Okay, so this, I'm calling this like it's a static... I mean, because it's a... Is it a static method? It's not, so... I don't think it is anyway. No, it is. Okay. So that's why that's being called like this. This one is not. So we'll call it deskewed equals, and then should be able to pass that in like that. And now we have our deskewed image. So just throwing this here at the end of the pipeline. You know, I can definitely see scenarios where this might be smarter to do much earlier. You know, it could. I mean, this is one of those things, like the alignment logic. The alignment logic's slow, and it's kind of a pain. I could see a scenario where if we just did this sooner, dewarp and deskew, and apply that transformation to all the images, and then do alignment, if the alignment logic could be a lot simpler, because it wouldn't have to... It might not have to fix itself in... yeah, who knows? It might be able to find the right spot quicker. To say it in such an elegant way. All right. Yes, save a debug image. Deskew. And let's give that a whirl. And I think for this, I will just run everything. And I got to build. So, yeah, what were we at? Yeah, basically 72, like 33, 69, and 80. It'll skip files, which actually helps with the test running faster. And I don't have to delete them or clean them up. I wish it would skip logs too, but it won't. And then I also have the building is silent, so even though nothing's happening on the screen right now, it is building the library in the background. That'll take a few seconds. And then we'll get to running the tests. Let me take a quick check. Cool. All right, so it's going to run all 4 tests. This feels pretty slow. $72. So that one didn't really have a change. That one got worse, which I'm not gonna lose sleep over that one getting worse. That one didn't change. Yeah, if it's taking like 11 seconds. So 2 of them failed. Yeah, if it's taking... Oh, shaky legged it terrible. Yeah, if it's taking 11 seconds, 15 seconds to run on the machine that has a GPU, it's going to be a lot slower on the headset. So I definitely am going to have to boost performance somehow. I'm more than confident that I can do it, though. Alright, so that didn't help things. Let's skip the rebuild, and we'll run our old favorite align frames. Let's run that one and see what the files look like. I love this new test suite. It makes me smile having to just how quickly this can run and give me results and then go look at things. So I mean, just anecdotally, I can tell that that didn't de-skew anything. Which explains why the score didn't move. Well, let's run one of the ones that went the other direction, and that may tell us something of what it's doing badly. But we lost the old results. Do I have another folder here? Yeah, let's go with, yeah, the one that actually somehow performs really well, Shiggy Leg. Yeah, let's run that one. Here, let me drag that over, get out of the way. Okay, so this one, it like detected it and like rotated it. That's fun. Interesting. Apply edge detection. All right, so let's say what? Two things I noticed. For some of my tests, it actually makes the skew worse. Also, I was already detecting text. I was already detecting text in the image, and I have a bounding box for the text found. Could that be used to do this better? I'm having like a Monday morning brain a little bit. I have two versions of that bounding box. One is around all of the text. The other is region data for every word on the book page. Which approach would you suggest? Or is the current method the best? Because it detects all lines in the image, including non-text elements like borders, graphics. Using your existing text detection data would be much better. Here is the approach I'd recommend. The individual word bounding boxes would be the most robust approach here. More data points, multiple words give you better statistical confidence. You can ignore words that are clearly rotated differently, like headers, captions, etc. Only uses actual text orientation, not other image elements. Okay, here's the implementation. Key improvements: text focus, quality filtering, ignores very small or square bounding boxes, likely noise. Yeah, you've added too many features that I don't need. Okay, so and then we have our word boxes. Okay, what do I have? What do I actually have? So yeah, we get our images. We convert them all to matte. We get our template frame as the middle index. By the way, visually we can look at this too. So there's the 5 original images. Then that's our template frame. These are the regions we're detecting. And then that's the morphology step. Then there's this. Yeah, this wouldn't be as useful. I don't know. That actually looks pretty terrible, honestly. Or is that a perfectly square box? Yeah, it's not like a perfect... It's not like following the lines of the text, which might be better. Okay, so clustered regions is probably what I care about more. But see, then we're just getting the bounding box. So this might have to be refactored slightly. Let's see here. Detect text regions. So those are all the regions. Okay, and then we're writing some debug files, right? Right, the filtered regions. So we actually care about clustered regions. Is probably what we care about. Here we go. Here's our clustered regions. And then we create our bounding boxes. All right, so what I could probably do is break this out. And we'll do we'll just call this create bounding boxes. And where's our .h? Here we go. We'll do these together. So we'll say create bounding boxes, and that is going to take in region clusters. So we'll call that region clusters. Should that be a const probably? What should you complain about? Oh, I do need to close you off. Okay, now we're happy. So let's take our clustered regions. Oh, and we do need our input image still. So let's bring that in. It's getting to be an ugly long header, but there we go. And that's our result. And then for this, we are going to return the clusters. And we're going to have to return, change our return type. And if I do that here, there. And then go see where this is. Oh, right, that's going to be over here. I'm going to rename this to cluster regions. Why does this... This like keeps delaying its when it yells at me. Okay. And then we will cluster our regions over here. All right, so this is where we will need. Might as well just pull these both over. So this is the old way. This is the new way. And it'll be region clusters equals our template frame. It's not really cluster regions. Let's like get detect regions. Let's do that. There we are. Everybody should be happy. Minus the fact that we aren't calling this properly. Okay. And then now we're going to have our bounding boxes. And we'll still do our template frame being passed in. And then we'll pass in our region clusters, which actually should already be there. And that also needs to get called correctly. All right, so now we've successfully broken that function out into 2 steps instead of it being 1 big step. Now, what I should be able to do why do we use the bounding boxes? To crop? Okay. Let's not worry about it too much. Okay, there's our clustered regions. Right, so we have a code change here, right? I think it's the bottom of the file, or skew logic. All right, so now it is. Oh, okay. Let me tell it some fixes. So before I test this change, I think we need to make some tweaks. The function name is correct skew. And then oh, right. It's going to be I'm not going to do this, but I do want to see it though. So this would be go with the 0th. First cluster would be that if we strip out the outer vector, right? And is that what we do when we generate the bounding box? Well, hopefully the first one is the first one. Yeah, the 0 with 1 is on the left. Okay, either way, we generate 2 bounding boxes is what we do. And then that doesn't really matter. Right, bounding box is 0. We take the 0 with 1. Okay, so it's safe then for me, for the moment, to take the 0 with 1. Gotcha. Okay, so also the array of regions I have are in the format of, okay, what are we doing with that, by the way? We don't use it beyond. I guess what was the point? So we get all our regions as points. All right. That's fine. All right, it's going to rewrite it. Perfect. I've updated the function to change the function name from, great. Updated parameters to an array point to match your region format. Use bounding rect to convert each point vector into a bounding rectangle for processing. So, I don't know. Why? It's not. No, thank you. I guess, why did this need to be points? So on MSER, we get, okay, this is probably a performance optimization question for later when I refactor. But what might make sense is right now we get our regions and we return the regions. Perhaps it might be smarter to return the B boxes, because those are going to be rectangles, and those might be more performant to operate with, because I don't need the actual, like, the region. I don't know what the data is for that. That might be more data, like I don't know. Which means that we wouldn't use points here. But again, I don't know. Maybe I need the regions in order to do, well, that's just a debugging image. Yeah, I don't know, to do any of this other stuff. That's fine. Let's trust it for now. And again, this is where performance might be an optimization for later. All right, let's take this and see what we end up with. Wait, method 2. Using single text region bounding box. Similar, but less robust. Change the function name. The function now takes, this should now work with your existing text detection. Why did you create 2 versions for me? Correct skew, using individual word regions, recommended. Okay. So that's going to invalidate our header. There's correct skew. Let's replace that. I'm trying to think if I'm like actually learning C++ better by doing this. I mean, I know C++. It's been like 15 years though since I've done any meaningful C++. I mean, I think it's helped me refresh my mind on how certain things work in C++, but I don't know if leaning so heavily on an AI is actually, would I be learning the languages quickly? I mean, obviously I'm moving faster. There's no doubt about that. But I need to be smart enough in order to fix the AI's mistakes, and I'm not. In some cases I am. Not sure that's always true. Okay, so angles, calculate the angles for each word region that's wide enough to be reliable. Okay. That's going to be a lot. Fine. Let's let's just check to see if this works. I wouldn't be surprised if this takes like an hour to run. Oh yeah, where's our regions? Oh yeah, our first cluster. Here we go. And that is correct. Image and then word regions. And then we save our debug skew and go use it from there. Where am I at? Here we are. All right, let's run shaky leg. I think it was scoring like a 19 after that last change because it got really bad. Let's see if this fixes it. But yeah, looking at this code, it's going to do it for every region. I've got like 5,000 minimum, maybe even like 15,000 regions. This is not great. We're going to convert each to a bounding box. Skip very small regions. That's an assumption. Skip very square regions. Okay. Ugh. I don't. Okay, what about this alternate approach? Okay, you do some gray conversion Y. I didn't ask you to do that. I already have it as gray. Hue lines. Oh, okay. Was this? Okay, I don't know. $19. Score didn't change. How did it do, though? Did the same. Nothing changed. How long did that process take, by the way, though? I'm guessing it took a while. There's our D skew. way, is this before or after? I need to look this up. Okay, so this is the after the save. So we've done the save, and as long as we didn't get an error, we log something. Okay. So that means from here to here, that's how long it took to do the deskewing. Pretty fast, actually. I'm impressed. You know, sometimes that's where I'm like, sometimes these operations, you know, you think something's going to take forever in a day. And now, I mean, to be fair, what is that, like a quarter of a second? Which means on the headset it's going to be more like a second, and that is way too much. I'd rather see this number be practically nil, but... I could say, still having the issue where... I'm still having the issue where it corrects the skew in the wrong direction. Also, I'm getting these regions from I may have to start over and have the AI do it from scratch because it's not gonna do well with this code. Was it MSER? There we are. And then we'll do, let's do that. Or I could do, nah, let's just do that. Would it be better to do this operation on the B boxes that call returns? Let's do that. I think it might just be overly sensitive. So if I come down here, let's just neuter it a bit. Because it's saying if the size is less than 3, okay, that's fine. We do a bounding rectangle. This could cause it to chuck it out. From returns would be much better and simpler. Already gives you the bounding rectangles, so no need to convert from point vectors. Also, for the wrong direction issue, let's fix the angle calculation. The problem is likely in how we're interpreting the hue line angles. Let me update the function. Perfect, I've made several key improvements. Why is this version 7 now? So we have correct skew, method 2. Simpler build. I might try its method 2, just because. Yeah, I don't know. Fixed angle calculation. This properly converts. All right, CV pi, what is that? Where was I using this? Oh, in align images. Okay, that's rotation there. Okay, so was it theta? Interesting. Did this change? What if I just make this change directly? Safe box. So that didn't change at all. Oh, I see. You did your angle change there. Okay, so that's the old one. All right, while I'm gonna run this, and while that's running, oop, shit. No change, nothing affected anything. And maybe if I didn't skip running the tests. So I didn't actually test it, is basically the lesson learned there. Which is a bad mistake to make, because you tell the AI that it didn't work, it'll agree with you and then make a whole bunch of code changes that could be terrible. And there's no real way to know. And then it'll keep making code changes and keep making your code worse until finally you wake up and realize you had the parking brake on. And things were working 5 versions ago. Alright, let's see how Shaky Leg's doing. Alright. I mean, it's still wrong, but it's less wrong. Which means the code change that it wants to make is probably the right one. So if I switch to that, just make that change alone. Interesting, score went up to 68. So that's kind of telling that like fixing the how much fixing the skew helps things. Or how much it makes it worse too, even. Because I guess if we look at this, what is it? This score is an 80. So on the left, that scores an 80. On the right, that scores like in the 60s. So just by making the skew slightly worse, we drastically hurt the score. I mean, I'm sure some of it is just the corner words here, but like really no, it's like that's a pretty big drop. All right, let's run that again. And while that runs, I don't know. So this is saying now we'll get a vector of word boxes. Okay. If I go look at this, we have our regions. I mean, what happens if I just return that instead? I mean, I guess the only thing we're really doing to it is grid sample regions and then cluster regions. Don't really want to do all this refactoring, but that took in the points. How do we score? 86. Did that just fix it? You know what? I'll use the one image. Okay, so we went from there to there. So I think maybe I do need the de-warping, because the de-warp will handle this curvature, and I think it might not do as well at de-skewing without it. But hey, you know what? We've got basic de-skew. All I needed to do was make that one code change. So what happens if I run the entire test suite and we'll skip rebuilding? What scores do we get back now? So, all right, let me ask that question then. Side topic. What is the difference between working with CV rect and CV point? I already have a bunch of logic, and we'll do. Okay, the grid sampling is just a random sample, effectively. The cluster regions morphologically. Let's see here. Let's call another method. Not really. So there's our detect regions. Huh? Oh, right. Because that gets called from up here. That uses CV point, and I'm trying to decide if I should refactor that code. Thoughts? All right, let's see what that says, and then what are the test results? Error parsing. Image. So we failed and we crashed. That wasn't a fluke, was it? What test are we running? For some reason I can't see. Oh, align frames. Failed. Okay. Let's do it one by one. And the way to do that, the easiest way, would be to grab the names from here. But that's annoying. It's going to write the files out because I'm running just an individual test. For whatever reason, align frames fails hard on that scenario. As does this test. What about good? Huh. And then if we do shaky leg again, is it going to succeed? I mean, I did pick shaky leg because that one was a weird outlier. And then an OCR and got an 86. Okay, well, I guess we'll go with align frames. Let's run that one. Where are the test results? I want to see what the error was there. Hopefully maybe we get like a final, I mean, I guess, no, we got the enhanced. Okay, so it is in the rotation logic. Maybe, well, anyway, let's just see what the AI says for starters. Depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Here's the breakdown. Key differences. Rect is an axis-aligned bounding box, XY with height, representing a rectangle. Best for simple bounding box operation, fast collision detection, memory efficient for integers versus an array of points. Direct ROI extraction. Limitations. Always axis aligned. Can't represent rotated rectangles. And can't represent rotated rectangles. Less precise for irregular shapes. Can't represent the actual shape of text regions. Best for precise shape representation, rotated or irregular regions. More accurate area calculation. More memory intensive. Keep your existing point logic. Here's why. I get both anyway. Is likely more sophisticated. If you're probably doing shape-based clustering. Hybrid approach. When to use each. So use point, shape analysis, custom processing. Use rect for final bounding boxes. Simple operations. Having performed, don't refactor unless you want to boost performance, right? Yeah. You're not using the shape information, just doing bounding box operations. Since you already have working, you're probably more value there. Okay, so it's saying to stick to that for the moment. Great. Great, thank you. So our last code change helped things a lot for my first test case. I ran other test cases and am getting this error. All right, actually, before I do that, it probably assumes that I've made the code change that it recommended, which I did not. So let's actually go do that. In C++, can I return two values from a function? What does that look like? I mean, I guess, sure, you just make a simple array, if nothing else, and return an array of two elements, but here's the most common approach is using pair. Okay, so tuple. Make pair. Okay, 17 lets you do that. I don't know if I have 17. I gotta figure out which version I'm using. Okay, using a custom struct. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I would like to use a tuple. Tuple would be nice. It looks like the operation looks the same. So if we do get value, the first, and then the second. So I could try this to see if that works. So they're effectively the same. All right, let's try that. All right, and we'll do... Oh, this is going to be so ugly. It's okay. Let's do it. Let's get crazy, shall we? There's going to be that. And then the other thing we're going to return is a vector of rect. So then we're going to do... God, this is going to be so ugly. I'm going to love it. It's going to be great. Okay. That's what it looks like, which is wholly unreadable to me. But that's fine. And then, since we're doing a tuple, we're going to make our tuple. Let's bring this in here as just a reference. So make our tuple of regions and V-boxes. And that seems to be okay with that. And then I need to go fix that. So ugly. Sure, why not? Yeah, see, it's happy with it. Why not? All right, just using it in 2 places. So the question is, can I do the auto thing? Auto list, huh? Okay. We're just going to do auto, and we're going to do regions and V-boxes. And let's see if it builds that. And instead of running the tests, I'm going to do build Windows and see if we get an error. I think I have my tests actually set up where if it does error, it'll short circuit. I think I had that working. This might be a good time to test this, if this fails anyway. Nope, it succeeded. So we're on 17, I think. Sweet. I don't want to keep doing that. Where's detect regions called from? It's called from here, right? Gotcha. Okay, let's pull this out to here. Yeah, I'm just gonna like really break this out into multiple steps. That's probably private. Private. All right, let's make this public. Just expose these things. So that way Camera Enhancer is really just a series of utilities that are just available always. Gotcha. And then detect regions then. We'll change this to cluster regions. And that is going to be we'll pass in yeah, we're going to get the points, right? We'll call, yeah, this is going to be the regions. So this is what's going to get passed in. Into cluster regions. There we are. So now cluster regions is now going to take different argument. Which means it can do that. Which means that's all fine, right? Right. Okay. You shouldn't be here. Sorry. Yeah. There we are. And we have our image. And then we have our, yeah, so we should have done this here anyway. I don't know why I did it from that other method. Okay, what are you complaining about now? What's your problem? Gotcha. Sample the regions for performance. I think yeah, I think we're just gonna really break this down and kind of like pull things out, aren't we? So we're gonna do which I like this. I like having all the business logic here in this one larger method. This will help us later also if I want to reorder these steps. So then I should be able to just treat these like Lego blocks and reorder things. and do what we need to do, right? So now we have our filter down regions. And then filtered regions goes there. So now we're going to chop it down, which means we are refactoring so many things. Grid sample regions. Again, one more, we just keep doing this, right? We keep pulling things out of private and making them public. So we had cluster regions. And now grid sample regions, or detect text. And then cluster. Yeah, put it there. Okay, where's your problem? What are you not liking? Okay, so we still have our little bit of an issue here. And look, we've got duplicate log statements, which tells me that I'm doing the right thing to some extent. Yeah, see, now it's like, why does this method even need to exist? It's just a simple wrapper now at this point. So, yeah. Cluster regions, where were you in anyway? Okay. Detect regions was cluster regions. That's what it was. So this should now, let's fix things before we break them further. So that's happy. Gotcha. So now I'm going to take this and I'll just pull it out to here. So that's the old one. And again, we're still calling methods within the enhancer, but now it's more business logic. All the business logic organizations happening at the higher level. Yeah, so that was, let's do that as region clusters here, and our template frame there. Draw debug, I'll fix that. This, so first off, cluster regions doesn't need to exist anymore. Here, I'll just comment it out for the moment here. But you're gone. And then this cluster regions is fine, but it needs to move, right? Because it was a private method. And now it's going to come down here. Because we're exposing, yeah, we're flattening the hierarchy. Is that happy now? Okay. I think we're down to these two things, just these two errors, which are the same error. And that's, what is that? Is that just a private method? It is. What I probably should do see, I don't know. All we're passing in here is regions in the frame. So we don't have... Alright, let's make it public. Just because... Again, that just helps us in general. Let's put it here. So we'll move those to be public. And then I should be able to just do... Again, are they... They're static, right? Are they not? No, they're not. They could be. Alright, but everything's happy now. And again, now we have all this broken out by steps. Now, what was the whole point? The whole point of this was to get the B boxes, which I'm not using. Okay, so first, let's just run everything. We won't skip. Let's run the whole test suite, and I think it's going to fail, right? Because we're having an error. And then what we'll do is come back and implement this. This is our correct skew function, right? Yeah. Okay, that's gonna error. That's fine. We just committed our code this morning, so everything's backed up. So it doesn't really matter how badly we make things. Worst case, I just trash all these changes. So back here in the enhancer, I'm gonna replace basically all this. Should be basically the same logic, but now we're going to use the B boxes instead. Now it's going to scream because correct skew is now a travesty. Now it takes an array of rectangles instead of an array of points. Okay. Are you happy now? But correct skew here should scream. Down here it screams. Shit. Well, that's not going to work. Because I would have to... create our bounding boxes. All that for naught. I'll leave it for now. This may come in handy. But I actually should be Where's our bounding box struct? Is that in here? Is that a .h somewhere? I think it is. Let me back this up in case I need it. Let's go with okay. Sorry to put another change on you. I actually just realized I already had a but see, dang, this doesn't work how I want to do this, because that's all great and all that we have our bounding box. Okay, I know what I should do, probably. Create bounding box. Get convex hull B box. So what does this do? For all the cluster regions, we create moments. We push a point that represents the centroids. And then we do a bounding rect. Okay. So let's see here. Okay, bit of a wrinkle. I am realizing now that I can't use the B boxes coming out of directly, because I do some other processing, like I mentioned above, that filters out regions that we don't want before, doing more steps. I do have the below method that generates B boxes. But they aren't aligned well. But they are perfectly aligned. could we create a version? I guess that's the question is, we create the bounding boxes, we get the first one, and then we crop. Okay. So actually, what I'd like to do, the reason is that the very next step crops the image. What I'd like to do is to move our deskew step to before the crop, which means we might be able to reuse this method to create non-square B-box information that we can then deskew and then crop on. Thoughts? Is this a sound plan? That's a very sound plan. Is it? Is it though? It's actually the correct approach for several reasons. Why this makes sense. Deskew should happen early. You want to correct the entire document before doing region-specific processing. Better accuracy. So full image, deskew, region detection, crop, OCR. About your create bounding box method. The method looks good. I'm curious about this part. If you're making them square for cropping purpose, we might want to create a separate method to deskew. Yes, that's what I just asked you to do. Recommended workflow. Yeah. Yeah, cluster regions, and then we do the bounding boxes. Yeah. Okay, so let's pull this up. We'll do this here. I'll create some space. And then we will revert this back to that. All right. So correct skew is what we're advocating for here. Well, this different version of correct skew. Wait, what? This logic seems wrong. Hold on. Well, let me close that. Method 2. Why do you keep making this method 2? So in theory, it's this one. I think you messed up. Yeah, that extra text there shouldn't be there. Okay, this might be sound. And now it's going to hate me again. So let's go fix. Correct skew, right? Here we are. I don't know what I just did there. I think I made it full screen. Okay, yeah. That's what F11 did. All right. And then we correct skew by calling this. First cluster should be fine. Should be able to just do template frame. Sorry, what is it trying to accept? It's trying to do oh, okay, that's why this is wrong. All right, so one issue I see. Yes, we have, but when we call correct skew, we are going to only do that for now on the first element in that array. Later, we may call it multiple times for each element. Now, I'm just going to say that. I see. You have clusters of regions, and for dskew, you want to process just the first cluster, which is probably the main text body. Yep, exactly. It is so interesting how sometimes like the AI does actually understand things. Like, it doesn't really understand, obviously, but you know, it kind of understands. All right, let's get rid of one of these vectors. Gotta code review your AIs, you know? Okay, so I'm out of free messages for now. Now your function takes, instead of the full array, usage would be, yeah, of course, sure, why not? All right, now it's a smaller method, which should be less broken. It still screws up this code because it just kind of edited it, and somehow this ended up being like a hanging. I'll probably start a new thread anyway for any future stuff. All right, let's pull this in. Oh, oops. It's this. Change the wrong thing. There we are. Hey, look at that. Okay, so now we grab our cluster. We de-skew on that. And then even the AI is saying, we take our result. Oh, right, we have our de-skewed image. So then it should just be that. Okay. Let's run the whole test suite. See if it actually crashes like before or if we fixed it. I'm gonna guess that it's not gonna crash. If we're gonna get an error, it'll be a different error. All right, things are worse, score-wise. Already, I can tell. 75 on good, though. That's not terrible. All right, so shaky actually went up a point. Shaky leg. Align frames and the other one dropped. Okay, so what if we... Let's just go look at... I'll just do dash K shaky. And let's skip. We don't need to rebuild. So if I run that, what are we looking at? Here, let me nuke a bunch of these. Oh, also from the 10th. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, whatever. I'll clean these up. I probably don't need most of them anyway. Oh, okay, okay. So that's like really good. Although we lost the header there for some reason. Cluster our regions. De-skew. Again, skewing going in the wrong direction. That's why things got worse. I mean, and ultimately, template, low quality, good alignment. Okay, so we have a couple good alignments. So we still end up with like a pretty good, but now the skew is worse. And so, did it do the same dumb thing it did last time? It's gonna be really annoying if it did. Where is that line change? Where is that? So we have our clusters, get the bounding rect for this region. Skip small regions. No, we don't need to skip anything. So, or, okay, fine. Maybe we will leave that for now. I mean, one thing I could do is I could add a log statement to see how many regions actually got included. Because we do a series of continues here. So then I could add a +1 somewhere. We are generating a lot of images. And then we grayscale it because, why? Oh, it is color. But why wouldn't we just do the whole image as gray? Like, why would we do this operation every single time? Gross. Actually, I wonder what the performance on this is. We're doing this before alignment, right? It's interesting, actually, that I'm de-skewing and then not doing anything for the alignment. I didn't de-skew all the images, and yet the alignment still does pretty well. Okay, anyway, here we are. Yeah, the better part of like a second it's taking. So that's fine. Apply edge detection to this specific text region. Why? Why would we do that? We're already... Here we go. Here's that same... All right, let's go find that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like the main issue. Here we go. Was it theta? No, it's doing... Okay, so it did carry that forward. I thought maybe that got lost. Okay, so the angle is fine. Let me look at this. Yeah, that is not correct. I guess it's what? Our template frame. See, I'm not trying to de-skew the whole image. I can see from the tearing down here that, again, we are de-skewing in the wrong direction. All right, I'll have to think about this for a second. What are my operations here? I guess before I was cropping. Deskew region clusters. But see, that's a question. It's a real question. Is like, yeah, see, I think, yeah, that's all messed up. Because the bounding boxes are not correct either. The bounding boxes are going off of the wrong thing. We're not adjusting. So this correct skew doesn't rewrite any other methods, right? See, this is still CV erect, right? Yeah. So basically all this code down here is just, it's copying and pasting it for whatever reason. Okay. What if... Let's just check on that. I guess I'll take a stab at fixing this myself, right? Wrong spot. All right, let's try that. We won't skip. We'll do our build. And we'll see if it's worse. And if it's worse, that'll at least tell me, it'll confirm what my eyes were already telling me, which was just how bad. Like how we were messing up the bounding boxes while we were at it. Nope, seem to have no effect. I mean, I guess I can go back one, right? And see. So this is the old one. And this is the new one. I'm seeing the exact same result. Okay. So that didn't seem to affect things. But let me think about this for a moment. And as always, I'm sure what'll happen is I'll go grab lunch, stew on things, and then I'll end up coming up with the right solution. And I'll fix all these things off camera, as always. Which hopefully means when we have the next stream, like, I'll be done with this. Yeah, I mean, we're fixing our skew, and then we're throwing the bounding box right on top. Which is not what we should be doing. So, I probably skipped the bounding box, right? The problem also is, this is a bit of a workflow problem because the skew isn't really going to be the same for both images, right? One page is going to have different skew than the other. So if one is going to have different skew than the other, then what I need to do is isolate the pages. And that would say that no, we don't do this early. We go back to the original plan, and we first have to get the bounding box and crop on that. And we can be generous, right? Like I can do what I was doing before anyway. When we do the bounding box, right? Like we are, where is that? No, it is the cropping, right? Yeah, so we're adding padding, right? We're padding around. We're adding some padding around the bounding box just to make sure that we get everything. And that's fine, because then when we do the crop, as long as it's like pretty much guaranteed to contain all the text, which it does, then if we do a deskew operation on it at that point, everything's fixed. So as much as I like the idea of doing deskewing early, I just don't think we can do that. I don't think it makes sense. So that means undoing a couple of these steps, which really means we crop Yeah, we do all the cropping. And then we do this. I think there's no way around that. And our image is still the template frame, right? And then we crop it. And then we get our first cluster. So actually, yeah, maybe we're just fine then. Maybe now that we've cropped it, if we do our deskew at this moment. Okay, I thought I maybe painted myself into a corner where I was going to have to redo all this logic and just approach the problem from a different way, which still might be true. But this, in theory, should work. So if I run this now, let's run it on shaky. I mean, oddly enough, even running this now, we are still getting an 81. wasn't the end of the world. But let's open this in a new window. So this is what we got last time. And then this time, still building. Okay, so yeah, we have to crop first and isolate the pages because we're talking about two planes here, and those two planes are going to have different skew and different warp. So we have to isolate them first, and then we can do whatever it is we want to do. And how did we do? How's our score? 81 still. That's fine. So again, we got our bounding boxes. That bounding box looks a lot cleaner with the padding. The padding makes sure that, you know, we even end up getting part of the 82, right? So, wait, what? No. Bounding boxes. 11D skew. No. No, no, no. That can't be right. Am I on the... did I click on the wrong thing, maybe? What's going on here? This should be the new one. 1211. Oh, did I... Bounding boxes, crop, I'm losing my mind. What am I going on here? Align. Alignment quality. Here we are. Yeah, align image. Oh, right. Enhance text from frames. Fine. Because... yeah, also I was doing this on the template. It should be the cropped frame. But really we want this final... that is what we want. And then we want de-skewed to go into OCR. Yes. Right? Because... great, now I have them backward. Yeah, because this is the... yeah, the skewing was happening at the wrong step. Okay, that's fine. Let's run it again. 79. Okay. So how did that do? I'm guessing it did it in the wrong direction, right? So enhanced, and then there's our enhanced image, and then deskew. Yeah, see? It did it ever so slightly in the wrong direction. Maybe I can fix that. Let's run it one more time. Yeah, for some reason I didn't think it was going to be this much work to get this working. But this is okay. I still have some confidence that in the next day I will be done with this. Still. Same thing. It's still going in the wrong direction. Angles.begin, angles.end, skew angle. Do we want to go in the opposite direction? I am thinking no, we don't. Let's see if maybe that's it. Maybe it's just going in the wrong direction is all. That'll be quite funny if that's like the problem. I think also it'll be a slighter effect because of the warping. 83. Yeah, so we went from 79 to 83 by fixing it. I'm gonna suspect since it's averaging them from all the regions, that's gonna mean. I was hoping this wasn't going to be the answer, but that's what that's really going to mean is that, yeah, since some of these, that is really not great. Like that, like it's in the right direction now, which is good, but that, there's no way that that is the average angle of all of them. If it's greater than 3, here, you know what? Let's do it times 5. Can I just do that? I want to see like what happened. Like, also, what happens if I just kind of, like, how good of a score can we get from this? So if I multiply that by 5, that angle, it's probably gonna be way overblown. But yeah, I want to see like how good of a score do we get if we just actually fix the angle. If angle size mod 2 is 0, why do we do this? And then get the absolute ABS. What is ABS? Absolute value, right? 0.2f center, image call, image row, skew angle. We get the median. We go to the middle one. We're not calculating the overall skew angle. We're literally just getting the middle skew angle, whatever that is. Okay, well, fixing that might fix everything. Let's see what happens when I go crazy. Yeah, see that's a... Not amazing, right? But how much did this improve the score? 87! Okay, let's play around with this. Let's multiply it by 15. Again, I'm just kind of ham-fisting this right now, just because I want to see, like, visually, if I visually look at it and the skew is mostly fixed, I would love to not have to do dewarping. My suspicion is dewarping is slower, and it's probably good for improving the OCR of the text, and I may have to do it anyway, but I just want to see, like, hey, in theory, if we really nailed deskew, how far does that take us? $87. So we still ended up at 87. I may have overcorrected. Let's find out. Did I go too far? I would love to see if I went too far. Yeah, we did. I mean, not terribly too far. Actually, that looks pretty flat to me. Here, I can not click that. I can use the side of my screen to measure this. Oh, yeah. That's too much. So I think we just kind of, we were off by the same amount in the opposite direction. So if I just split the difference between 5 and 15 and go 10, which was my instinct, but I didn't want to I didn't want to sneak up on it. I wanted to rapidly find the best spot. Yeah, so the other thing would be, let me do a to-do here. To-do. Crop again. This time to remove extra padding. Extra, 30 pixel padding we added before. Maybe remove 20. Not remove all of it, because we do want some padding. Tesseract is happiest when there's 10 pixels on all sides of the text, so we don't want to be super tight. It would be nice then to know, I guess here's the problem. When we do our bounding box, we are doing the bounding box based on the widest text that we have. And that means we're going to have a bounding box way bigger than we need. So it may actually be, I added 30 pixels to give us some good breathing room. We may actually want to remove 50. But it would be better if we could actually do the math and figure out, now that if we've corrected for skew, where actually does the text begin. And I don't want to have to go, I could, just to ham-fist it for the moment, go recompute the bounding boxes again. I don't necessarily want to do that, but that would get us the perfect version of it. So okay, and then let me see, how does this look? I'd say it's slightly overcorrected, but it's within the realm of what Tesseract's probably happy with. So I'm not going to like futz with it too much. What did we score? 88. Okay, so we're kind of hitting the upper limit there of what's going to make Tesseract happy. My theory would be, instead of times 10, instead of the median, what if we just did skew angle equals angles So we did angles.size divided by 2. That's going to get us the 50% mark. In this case, we do, yeah, divide 2, divide 2. What if we did times 0.75? Are we allowed to do that? Oh, but that's going to mess things up, right? Because fine, let's go simple on this. We'll do size minus 1. What happens if I just go get one of the bigger skew angles? Right, because isn't that what this is doing? Angles is what? Get the median angle for this text. So region angles, we sort it beginning to end. Huh? Why is it doing this? So we sort it. Okay, so we sort it. And oh, okay. Region angle. We go and we get a single one. Okay. So that means, like, this is stupid. What did we do? So for line in lines, get the angle. Only consider angles that make sense for text. Huh? Okay, fine. Push the angle back. So as long as the angle is less than 30. Okay, so they're mostly holding a book straight. That means they're not... If it's a 45-degree angle, we ignore it. Okay, so we do the sorted angles. Well, you know, we sort it, right? So then let's do this. Let's get rid of all this. Let's use our region angles down here. Well. Can I just do angles equals region angles for now? Fine. It's already sorted. So there's no need to sort it again. Fine, we'll do our skew angle. And you know what, let's just go get the biggest one. I did mean to go see how this affected all of them. I guess I'll check that in a minute. We're basically saying, like, go get our largest angle. Whoa. Okay, that's like 30. Not great. Okay, that's fine. Let me just make sure that this is all working still the same. We'll run that build again. So let's, okay, so we are getting the median. Okay, so some of the angles are large for some reason. You know, I could see like, hey, let's take this. This is taking like 2 angles. Adding them together and divided by 2. Yeah, I'm tempted to say like, hey, can we just like not do the median and let's compute an average? Maybe we just compute an average. 67 on that last one. Am I being dumb? Did I... So it did need this for some reason. I guess if it was this scenario... But we only ever push one back. That's what I don't understand. And then we sort it again. Because all we got was the region angle. And we pushed it onto... We got a single one. Okay, so it was really like this logic was the logic that mattered then. Divide 2 minus 1. Divide 2, divide 2. It's literally the same logic repeated twice. Okay, what if I go back to ignoring this? And then we'll do equals angles 0. We'll go get the 0 with 1. And then here, we'll bring this back. Let's try that. All right, and I think I'm gonna probably take a break. Regardless of whether this works or not, I'll probably take a break because I think I need to clear my head before I reapproach this problem. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep spinning my wheels. I need to figure out what the issue is. I think I need a break, which is how it always goes. And our score was an 83. Okay, so we are back to the ever so slightness. Okay, so then what if... So again, now we have a... Let me think. What if we did region angle equals region angles 0. Take that 0 with angle plus -1. Let's do. I guess we can't do mine. It's not gonna have like the Python fun. What if we just average? Take the average, simple average. What do we do that? Take the simple average. And actually, while we do this, let's do our logging. Right. So I can at least see what angles we end up with here. So we can say angle for skew is, for skew correction is, and then we'll do region angle here. Why are you not happy? Oh, it's a number, right? Oh, Godot string num. But we're in the Godot namespace, right? So I should be able to do string num. Yeah, okay. All right, now we will get reporting on what angle we end up going with. And this isn't the smartest way to do it. What I would probably do, I also want to see like what is the count. So let's do that. What do we have? Regions. vector of doubles, right? Oh, this is a for loop. Oh. Oh. We're inside. We're going to log this a lot. Okay, well, that's cool. 74. We lost our quality, but actually, yeah, let's take a look. This all makes sense now as to why I'm not getting the behavior I wanted. Okay, we went in the wrong direction. That's fine. Okay, well... That's fine. I understand. So we end up with, in the lines, and we have our first cluster, right? So for each region, detect lines in this text region. See, this is what's wrong about this. I think this is what it doesn't understand. These regions... Okay. No. Yeah. Okay. Back to the drawing board. That's okay. The AI coded this wrong. And this is, first off, one, we shouldn't need to do this looping anyway. It's poor performance. Two, it thought that each of these clusters, like the regions in this cluster, that each of these regions is like a block of text. And that block of text likely is like a line of text. And so it's then trying to figure out, yeah, but it doesn't realize like each one of these is a word. And so we're going to end up, that's why also then we end up throwing out small words. So effectively the result's going to be, it's going to look at the regions on this page. And I can't remember what the regions are. Well, actually, no, I think the regions end up being, actually, I think it's these. So it's going to take like a region, like it's going to throw out the small regions. It's going to take a region like this or like that one. And it's going to try to compute like its angle. I think I'm going to have, it's going to be much faster, and I'm going to have much more success if instead I go back to some code I had before already, which is, can we get a bounding box that is not, like this bounding box is, this is a bounding box for cropping. What I need is a bounding box that follows, that covers like the region. And then if I do that, then I can just compute the angle of that one box. And like none of this code is needed. This is insane. Now I understand why it's messed up. Yeah, so here we end up throwing out 95% of the regions. Probably even more than that, like 98% of the regions. And then the few regions that sneak through, like we kind of compute the angle of this teeny tiny little box. And then we get, like we compute a bunch of lines in it. We try to find a bunch of lines in it, which it's probably only going to have one or two anyway. Well, actually we know this for sure. I mean, this is how many lines we end up computing across all of the regions. So this might even be just one per. So we only ended up with that many regions, and then we take the median of them. And we end up with some dumb, small, teeny tiny amount of skew. And I'll bet you it's like wildly different per image. And I'll even bet you the reason why we're getting an error with the other ones is because the other ones probably we get a 0 here. Like that we end up with no regions make it past this. And so then nah, we shouldn't have gotten an error. It should have said, hey, it's empty. Alright, anyway. Darn it. I took the wrong approach for this. That's fine. I know what I need to do. I don't think I resolved any tasks today. But still working on this. I'll probably add some notes here for myself about what to do there. But that's about it. So I will hang out with you probably on Wednesday. And hopefully, I'll probably have up the scores. So hopefully by Wednesday morning, we'll be dealing with 90s scores instead of 80s. Or 70s and 80s. And then hopefully be done with OpenCV. I keep saying that. One of these days it'll be true. All right. Thank you for hanging with me.